Welcome to the PT Marketing Power Hour, highlighting successful marketing strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. We have another great episode today, so don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, here's your host, physical therapist, marketing expert, and CEO of Practice Promotions, Neil Trickett.
Hello, welcome to the PT Marketing Power Hour, highlighting successful marketing strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. I'm your host, Neil Trickett, CEO of Practice Promotions, and today's focus is on why ignoring patient engagement and retention will cost you big in 2022, and of course, what you can do about it. So today our guest is Vikram Sethuraman. He is the founder and CEO of PT Wired. And we've had the pleasure of working with Vikram here for over 3 years and his incredible work for increasing patient engagement. So welcome, Vikram. Great to have you on the show with us.
Hey, Neil. Great as always to chat. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about PT Wired. What is PT Wired and what problem does it solve?
Yeah, so PT Wired is a patient engagement platform. It's a branded mobile app, and we specifically created it for physical therapy clinics and the specific needs and situations that are only relevant to PT practices. Every PT clinic gets their own mobile app, their logo, their brand, their name. The patient never sees the PT Wired name. So it kind of conveys that idea to the patient that it was something that the clinic created. And that kind of goes into more of the marketing and branding related values that we try to provide, which I know we'll get into a bit later on. So yeah, it's a patient engagement platform. It starts with that piece with home exercise to try and get the patient engaged with their rehab. But then once we have the app on their device, that's kind of like the foot in the door. That's how we basically get this platform that then we can leverage for so many other things like marketing, engagement, communication, scheduling, and much, much more.
Awesome. So you've talked to hundreds of different practice owners out there. And so, what are some of the problems that you see in a clinic when it comes to patient engagement, like patients dropping out and things like that you see?
Yeah, so the problem with patient dropout, I know you know this, a lot of people I feel like don't know how big of a problem patient dropout actually is. Like the statistics of 20% of patients dropping out within the first 3 visits, and 70% of patients not actually getting to discharge. They're either dropping out at some point or self-discharging at some point, but they're never getting formally discharged by their provider. So it's a huge, huge opportunity for additional visits. And, of course, somebody who's dropping out after 3 or before 3 visits, that 20%, they're not getting an optimal experience. And I think, a lot of times people are so focused when they see their schedule and when they see openings and they kind of imagine filling up their schedule, the thing they think about is customer acquisition. How do we get more patients? How do we get new patients? How do we have different marketing things to get more exposure to new patients? Whereas I think the very first thing you have to always think about is what are the patients you already have? Are you getting them the best possible experience? Because if they're dropping out, it's not just that they're doing, 7 visits instead of 12. It's not just, 5 visits that you're losing out on. I learned this word from you, the super fan. You want to get them the super fan status, because then it's not just that you get those 5 extra visits, but then you also get a referral to their friend or their family. You also get them a year later when they have a new back problem or a shoulder problem that pops up. So yeah, I think any time that you're starting a practice, anytime you're trying to grow a practice, the very first thing you really have to hone in on is the patient experience. Before you start spending a ton of money trying to acquire patients, get the patient experience in the place that it needs to be, so that once you have patients, you don't lose them.
That's great advice. Yeah. And there's so much that we talk about from a patient engagement side of things, and there's so many different things within the clinic that the practice owner can be focusing on to think about patient engagement. But you bring it back to like, what is the key thing? It's about the patient experience. So what's it like for the patient being there? Do they fully believe that you're the right solution for their problem? Do they have points of contact throughout their journey, right, with their therapy? And so, in practice, we see it so much where the patient's coming along, and maybe they've been in for like 2 weeks, and they're feeling good, they're feeling better, right? And then that's when they might discharge themselves, right? And they might just say to the therapist, hey, you know what, I'm feeling so much better now, thank you so much, this is great, I'm all done, right? And then the PT might go into agreement and say like, sure, yeah, if you're feeling better now, like, and you don't want to come anymore, okay. The problem with that, though, is a lot of times the patient is not fully better, right? They haven't got their strength back. They haven't got their coordination or balance or the ability to probably prevent that injury from coming again in the future. And let's say 2 or 3 months later, they start to have pain again. They start to have a problem. So what do they think? They think, therapy didn't really help me, right? And so it does hurt reputation for the long term, and the patient is not necessarily wowed into the future. They might be wowed when they leave therapy, but there's a lot of opportunity that's lost there, both from a revenue standpoint and also from a public relations standpoint with the patient. So patient engagement is really a critical area for you to focus on here in 2022. We all know that choices are up, right? People can go to a lot of different choices for medical care, PT being one of them. And there's also a lot of PT clinics that they have choices to go to. And will they choose you again in the future is a big thing that comes back to how was their experience during care there. So let's talk a little bit here about some of the stats around patient retention here. I know that there was something about Forbes Insights where they were talking about just increasing your customer retention rate by 5% can increase your profits actually by 25 to 95%, depending on your industry, right? But that's just a huge flip in the profitability just by putting a little bit more attention on what can I do to make sure the patients stay with me during care, right?
Yeah.
And there's the probability, right, of getting that patient back in for care in the future is about 60 to 70%, while the probability of getting a new patient in the door is anywhere from 5 to 20%, right? And again, that's some different stats that have been done out there. So let's talk here a little bit about mobile marketing, right? How can PTs leverage mobile marketing and patient engagement?
Yeah, so with the whole concept of patient dropout and patient engagement, part of the question is what is causing it, and then why would some type of mobile interface be the solution? And if you look at the indicators for dropout, the number one indicator of patient dropout is failure to complete home exercise programs. And I mean, doesn't really take a genius to figure out why. Like, of course, if they're not doing the exercises, they're not going to be progressing. Like you said, exactly like you mentioned, they're going to be thinking therapy doesn't work. And then they're going to drop out and go either like seek medication, seek surgery, and find alternative treatment methods. So the first approach should be providing a interface that's more engaging for the home exercises to optimize the chances that they do the exercises and then keep them on their rehab plan. This is why an app interface is very strong and is very engaging, because if you look at the factors that affect home exercise program adherence, a lot of them can be solved by an app. For example, the biggest factors are perceived barriers of forgetting, not having enough time, being unable to fit it into your schedule. All of those things can be done by an app and are done by the solution that we've created, where you can get reminders, you can plan it out, you can have automated notifications if you are forgetting. And then as far as the exercises themselves, another big factor was the instructive element. Paper handouts, stick figures, they can only go so far with really communicating the proper methods of completing the exercise. So having videos, that's a huge element. And finally, the third biggest factor affecting HEP adherence is social support. This big issue is that in between clinic visits, patients are kind of just stranded. They have the instructions, but then they don't have the support the same way that they have it when they're in the clinic, when their therapist is there, when their provider is there, not only to instruct them, but also encourage them. So what we have on our apps are HIPAA-compliant messaging platforms to bridge that gap. So then when you're at home and doing visits, you're not feeling as stranded, you're not feeling as isolated as you would be. And then also your therapists are now empowered. They're able to check in on you, even if you're not sending them a message. So that's why the mobile interface is good from a patient dropout and exercise standpoint. But like you were asking with marketing, now we have the platform. Now we have the app on their device, and they may have downloaded it for the videos, they may have downloaded it for the ability to message their PT, but either way, it's on their device now. So now we have this platform with your brand, your logo, your name, that then can be used for so many other things, such as pushing out promotional content, publishing blog articles, requesting online reviews through a pop-up on the app. So we could talk about, how much more engaging these types of things are through an app interface versus something like email. But the idea is you get the app on their device for the home exercise and the value to the patient from a rehab standpoint. But then once we have it, it's now a marketing platform.
Awesome. So many great pieces of advice there. I mean, one thing to think about is let's go back to the beginning here, what you're talking about. So with a home exercise program, we know, right, as therapists, that if we get our patient to do their home exercise program, they're going to have a much better chance of success in therapy. That's just bottom line given, right? So it's about what can you do to get the patients to do their exercises at home, right? And we all know what a challenge that is in therapy. And it comes back to this experience with the home exercise program. So if the patient we know that if the patient does their home exercises at home, they're going to get better. They're going to have a better experience. And if they continue to do that in the future, that problem that they came into should stay, relatively okay, right? So you end up with a happy customer for life, right? And they'll come back when they need to. So in order to make that home exercise program experience stick, you have to have it in a way that's very convenient for the patient, right? So if they just have a bunch of papers together and we add to those home exercise programs over time, that gets confusing for everyone. So, if you're still using paper handouts for your patients, it's time to change. It's time to go digital with that. And you can still have, handout capabilities with a lot of these apps, but it's much better when everybody has their phone in front of them, right? And so that's part of it there. And then, like, as you said, you can have images, but nothing conveys the story better than a video. Like the nuances of that particular exercise that you want them to do, if they can see the video, they can mimic it a lot better, right? And then that means they're going to do the exercise properly, get more out of it. And of course, then you customize the instructions in there. And one thing I think that's really cool with the PT Wired app is that the therapist can actually upload their own videos, right? If they have custom videos that they like to do.
Yeah, definitely. Because, a lot of therapists I know, they have different techniques. There's small variations that people like to do. We have 7,000 videos, so it's definitely not something a lot of people have to do. But yeah, that's absolutely an option.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so the person then has their video, right? And then what else is really neat here is you got to provide some sort of incentive, some accountability for the person to do this, right? We all know how hard it is sometimes to want to exercise at home. And so this is often the challenge, right, with patients, getting them to exercise at home. But if you can put some incentives with this, and there's some gamification that is done in the app to make it a bit more fun, right? To have some accomplishments, some targets, and then the therapist can actually see in the program, like, hey, you said that you actually did these exercises, and great job for doing that. So again, it gives reinforcement, it gets more compliance, more accountability with the exercises, and you can see that they were actually done by the patient. So that encouragement just kind of keeps going and going, and then you have a much better outcome in therapy. So that whole patient experience gets better and better. And I think one thing that's really interesting here that you've been able to accomplish, Vikram, is what you're mentioning about the marketing aspect of the platform, which is pretty unique in the industry. And we know that there's different home exercise program systems out there, and some of them are tied into EMR systems, which makes it a bit convenient for the therapist. But then usually the clinic's name is not really well tied into that app, and so they got to go find it on, there are hundreds of apps on their phone, and that patient, when they're discharged, 6 months, a year from now, and they're trying to find that information, are they going to remember the name of the app, or are they going to remember the name of the clinic that they went to? And you want them to remember the name of the clinic. So what's really cool, what PT Wire does, is the app itself is branded on the app store to your clinic's name, right? So it's actually this really unique app that's basically looking like it's your clinic's app. And so when they go, hey, I went to XYZ physical therapy, and here's their app, they're like, ooh, wow, you got your own app, right? It creates this kind of wow factor to it. And so then it creates this seamless experience from what I'm doing in the clinic with XYZ physical therapy to what I take home on my phone, and notifications and all kinds of things I get through this whole mobile experience from that clinic's app that is powered by PT Wired. So I thought that was pretty unique, pretty cool experience. So one of the reasons that we actually partnered together, because while there are a lot of different HEP solutions out here, the PT Wired solution ties in a lot more marketing and this whole patient experience and branded experience of the clinic with the patient engagement and the patient experience part of it.
Yeah, and that's something I mention every demo call I do is, all of the marketing spend that like the clinic does, every clinic, all of the marketing spend, all of the hours of care that you're using to build your reputation, that's for your brand. So we never want to take somebody out of that brand experience. Exactly like you're saying, if we have a push notification feature that sends out a push notification, but it says some third-party brand that nobody knows about, I'm not going to click on it. But if it has my PT clinic, that's the brand I know. Like, I don't care about PT Wired. I don't care because I'm a patient. I don't know that brand. Whereas if I'm going into therapy and I'm getting better and I have a good relationship with my provider, and then I see that brand on my phone, it's a different appeal to the patient.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit here. How this ties in, sort of like, with a multi-channel marketing approach to patients. So like, why would I want to think about using mobile apps in conjunction with direct mail marketing, with email marketing? Like, why is it important these days to start to think about how can I use mobile in my clinic?
Yeah. So the first thought I would say is it's not, an either or. You should still, those are still great things to do. Email marketing, print marketing, that's fantastic, and those still work. But the reality is with some things, push notifications and these other types of mobile marketing strategies are just going to produce better numbers. For example, email click-through rate is 3%. With push notifications, it's 20 to 30%. A lot of people, I check my email probably as much as you do, a lot, way more than most people. But the reality is the majority of people check 1 to 3 times per day. So, these are all things we have to think about when we're looking at our marketing strategies. Whereas the statistics or mobile phone usage, I know you were noting some of that about the statistics of mobile phone and how much people are looking at their phones. That's a lot higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know like my work email, I check a lot throughout the day, but like my personal email, I check maybe once every couple of days, right? And
Yeah.
and so things just pile up in there, and then you've got, hundreds of emails to go through and delete and everything. But like when you get a push notification on your phone, like, and it comes on your home screen, it's there, right? You can't ignore it, because you're looking at your phone many, many times a day. And so it's the same experience for your patients in that, if you send out a push notification once in a while, that's going to get a higher, click through rate and getting read, getting in front of people. And so, the clinics that we work with their PT Wired app, they get a lot of engagement happening with them. So it's a pretty cool feature to have in there. So what are some of the things that you hear, Vikram, from clinics that you work with in terms of like how the experience goes, what happens with the patient experience when they're using, a mobile app in their clinic?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I hear is that a lot of clinics just feel more empowered with the experience they're able to give to their patient. Previously, before these types of technologies were as prevalent, the capacity of providers to impact the patient experience as a whole was much more limited. You had a lot of control over the patient experience when they're in the clinic, but then when they're at home, like I mentioned earlier, the patient's isolated and you don't have as many channels and platforms to be able to engage them. That's the biggest feedback I get, is that people feel empowered. They're able to check the patient's progress. They're able to look for indicators of dropout only through the data, which is something we actually do automatically. Our system is designed to look for indicators of dropout automatically. So then you are able to intervene prior to the dropout occurring, rather than just not seeing that patient again. And then I think another big thing is how impressed people are by now this new channel for marketing. For example, I'll give an example from Christmas this past month. We had a clinic who they were doing a Christmas party, and then they sent out multiple push notifications in advance of the event. And it was for new patients and past patients. So then it was and it included a workshop for free assessments, as well as prize giveaways. So we did push notifications. We also added a whole custom button to the app that was completely unique, that then opened up to information about that specific event. So then they were able to engage a lot more patients who may have been discharged, but then still had the app, and then they saw the push notification. And then the event was huge and was like completely crowded. So like those types of opportunities that people now have, those are the things I hear about a lot. It's just like, wow, like now there's so many things that we can do with this type of platform.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So one of the things I like too, coming back to using this app as a whole patient experience tool, is you can actually customize like the login page, like when they open the app on their phone. And I've seen some clinics, they'll do like games, like if they're giving away, a t-shirt or something from the clinic, and there's all kinds of creativity. And you think about all the things that you do in your clinic, all the different games and things that you might run to increase patient engagement. But now being able to do that through their phone, that's a pretty cool thing, right? And they're going to be checking their home exercises anyway, so they're going to see that in front of them. I think too, like one of the cool things is being able to tie in sort of like the website experience in with that mobile app. And so some of the blogs that we do tie in through the mobile app, so it's another way for them to get all that rich content and health tips and things that you're putting out via email and up on the website. But now it comes through again in this patient mobile app, that they're seeing it in a different way. So as you talked about before, it's sort of like you need to have multi-channel marketing. You need to have multiple layers of marketing happening across different channels in order to get that information in front of people today, right? So email and social media and on their phone. And so this is a pretty cool way to do that. I think one of the things that we talked about in the past was, and that's been added, is some of the communication type features. Could you explain that a little bit? Like what some of the good best practices there, some of the features that happen with the communication?
Yeah, so we have a fully HIPAA compliant messaging system on the app. So patients are able to message their providers, providers are able to message their patients. And, you know, for you to, if you want to get super focused on the idea of maximizing patient retention, reactivations, and things like that, that's where we've seen people get very creative with the messaging system. Using the messaging system as a platform post-discharge to engage with patients and basically do check-ins. You know, having a system where 2 weeks post-discharge, immediately post-discharge, you send them a message that says, hey, thanks so much for all of your work with me over the past however months. If anything comes up, let me know. And then another 2 weeks later, saying, hey, it's been 2 weeks, is everything still good? Another 2 months later, being like, wow, it's been 2 months, how's your back? These types of things, which, doing on a big scale with all of the dropouts, one, does it not only reinforce the fact that they're going to the best, they're going to the people who are really invested in their rehab. So even if they're not doing better, they may think, wow, this is such an exceptional service that I'm getting, and then now I'm more likely to refer my friend or family. Or even if they're thinking, yeah, my back is fine, though it's been 2 months, but I actually rolled my ankle, so maybe I should just get that checked out. That happens all the time. Like people who do that, it happens all the time. So the communication piece is big. I mean, I mentioned earlier, that's one of the principal reasons that people don't adhere is lack of social support. And then if you look up any behavioral study about behavioral change for exercising, social support's always going to be one of the main reasons. Mm-hmm. So having that element is absolutely essential if you're going to maximize the engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's about, like you said, the support for that you can make that happen through, again, a mobile experience for the patient, still connected with your clinic, feel like they keep getting that support on and on and on, right? And then it's having those opportune times, right, to be there at the right time in the right place to help things happen. So, check-ins, right, that feeling of like, wow, they really care about me, they're checking up on me after I'm done. That creates a lot of opportunities for referrals, right? So it's a great opportunity, like, hey, if there's anybody that that could use our help, please, refer them our way, right? So a lot of opportunities for stimulating referrals there. And one of the other cool things that we've worked with Vikram on for our clients is adding in a Google review feature into this whole experience. So, like your patients that are doing their exercises, that they're going to be getting a better result than the people that don't, right? And so when they complete so many exercises and they complete so much of their program, that's a great time to ask for a Google review. And so it's nice with the platform built in this automation that links right to your specific locations, Google review, and it's going to automatically ask the patient once they've completed so many exercises at home or at certain times through that experience if you wanted to check in with them a couple weeks later. So it's a great way to again tie in the marketing aspect into this whole patient experience. So pretty cool thing there. Vikram, any last words of advice here for clinics and focusing on patient engagement and using mobile to increase that patient experience?
Yeah, I would just say that, I think it's really the whole digital interface. Like if we look at some of the latest statistics that have come out for different surveys in the physical therapy space, 74% of patients want a digital intake. 68% of patients want the ability to schedule appointments on their phone rather than having to call into a clinic. So, we've talked a lot about exercise and messaging as part of the apps, but, all of those things are not digital intake, but like appointment scheduling, bill pay, there are all these other elements that are also part of the PT Wired app and the kind of patient engagement experience that you can create. And then, of course, also with the customizations with what you mentioned about reward incentives, like a lot of people are already doing something like that, even without an app. Like they're doing some type of giveaway of a T-shirt, of a hat or something. So incorporating it into a digital mobile strategy for patient engagement is just going to further expand the effect that has in whatever the marketing or patient engagement goal that is associated with it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So for our listeners out there, make sure that you're really taking this time this year to focus on patient engagement. That patient experience is so critical to your success. You're going to be able to increase the amount of patient visits that are happening just from the patients that you already have in there. So if you can increase that by 15, 25, even 50%, that would be massive changes in your outcomes that you're getting for patients, in the revenue that you're generating for your clinic, and the opportunities that you have for referrals and new patients coming in the door. So this is such a critical area for you to really focus on in your clinic, and then look at opportunities that you have to leverage mobile technology, mobile apps, home exercise program, marketing experiences for your patients that really create this rich patient experience for them and keep them connected at home to the clinic. So if you want to learn more about the patient engagement app that we have at Practice Promotions that's powered by the PT Wired system, just go to practicepromotions.net/app. That's /app. And you'll be able to learn a lot more about how that works and how you can power your clinic with that technology. So thanks, Vikram, for being on the show today. Really appreciate all your insight to help our viewers out there and our users in improving their ability to get patient engagement going. And look forward to talking with you again. And thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Neil.
Thanks again for joining us today. Be sure to check out practicepromotions.net/power. There, listeners can download over 9 checklists and free resources made to coach you through simple, proven marketing actions to increase new patients. So check it out today. That's practicepromotions.net/power, and I'll see you next time.